Hi, hey, and hello there. Behind here, and welcome back to the Comic High Ground. All right, look, today is the day. X-Men 97 dropped today, and man, whoo, if you watched the OG series, then you are gonna be happy from the moment that this show starts, from the opening sequence, meaning the theme song, you are gonna be just ecstatic because the theme song is perfect, and I know that's, I guess, kind of strange to say because it is a continuation, but they and different animation and new people working on it. But the theme song itself, they've changed it a bit from the standpoint that they've got a newer band doing it, so there's slight musical changes in it, nothing really bad. And then the animation itself, like when you see the intro and you see that they basically everything is almost exactly how it was in the original 90s X-Men intro, but they've updated the animation. They've added a few new people, like Morph is in the intro now. Cable is in it. Not Cable, I'm sorry. Bishop is in the intro now. And like just seeing all the clips from the old theme song brought back in this one just with this new animation, it was just really wild because honestly, when I was watching it, it almost brought a tear to my eye because I was like, "This is freaking awesome!" And I'm the big kid in me really came to light when this show was on as I was watching it because it's just so many nods and continuing plot points from the original series. So in this review, I'm gonna tell y'all there'll be some spoilers, but not major spoilers because I do want you all to go and look at it for yourselves, just so you can really get to enjoy the episodes. But basically, it starts off. We find out that the events of this series take place a year after the last episode of the original X-Men, so they're kind of still reeling a little bit from what happened with Professor Xavier and everything. And the first thing you see is there's a mutant that's been taken by the Friends of Humanity, and they're basically getting ready to take him out. But Storm comes in and she's basically like, "Look, I'm the weather goddess. Y'all back off, or else." And of course, they choose or else. So they start shooting at Storm, and then Bishop comes and he backs her up. And then when they kind of pin them down, Cyclops bursts in there. And guys, look, this series, and not to discredit the original one because Cyclops was done pretty well on that one too, but it feels like the writing team really wanted to showcase that Cyclops is that dude because he burst in there and pretty much almost by himself changed the tide of the fight. And his action sequences were so freaking cool. Like they had him using his optic beams to maneuver around, and he's just like kind of hand to hand fighting these guys and dealing with groups of them. And I guess really when you think about it, maybe the writers saw what happened with Cyclops in the movies and they were like, "Nah, we gotta fix that," because a lot of people don't respect Cyclops, and I think that's due to how badly he was portrayed in the movies. But and he has another cool part later on in this episode, and I'll get to that. But yeah, his action sequence was just awesome, and then they had this like nice little nod to the original series because the guys pinned him down, and they go to take his visor, and he's like, "No, please, I surrender." And then when they take the visor off, he's like, "Not." And then he just opens his eyes and just blows all of them away. And that's a nod to the original X-Men series because earlier in like that first season, a Sentinel had him pinned, and he had asked Scott to surrender, and he was like, "Of course not." So it just nods like that. And again, Ray Chase sounds just like the Cyclops actor from back then, so it's like a seamless change. But anyway, they save this mutant and they take him back to the X Mansion, and he meets all the X Men and everything. Kind of similar to how the first episode, Night of the Sentinels, went, where they saved Jubilee, and they brought her back, and she was meeting everybody. So basically, the point of this first episode is they find out that there have been Sentinels being made. They find out that Trask is making more Sentinels, and they find this out through Geiger. I think that's his name, Geiger. Each of these characters, of course, were in the original series, but they find that out, and so Scott takes the team except for Jean because Jean's pregnant and he didn't want her to get hurt, and he leaves her behind, and the rest of the team go to basically stop Trask from making this new master mode because Jean got into Geiger's head and found out that there was supposed to be this even more dangerous master mode being built. So they go there in this like old abandoned desert area, and a sentinel ends up knocking their plane at the Blackbird out of the sky, and so at this point it grabs Scott, and Scott just pretty much let loose and just started tearing the sentinel apart with his blast. But again, the Blackbird is jacked up, so all the flying X-Men, Rogue, Storm, and Morph, because Morph can morph into someone who can fly, of course, they start grabbing all the X-Men who can't fly. And so you look, and I'm kinda here looking at myself like, is no one gonna grab Scott? But he says, good work, team, meet you on the ground. And I'm like, is he gonna do what I think he does? And sure enough, he does. He kind of skydives down, and then as he gets close to the ground, he lets out this optic beam and pretty much slows his descent until he gets to the ground, and he caps it off with his superhero landing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I see y'all. You're trying to give Cyclops his props, and I appreciate that. So we go and they confront Trask, and he lets loose all these Sentinels on them. And you've all probably seen the scene already where they are surrounded by the Sentinels. The X-Men fight off the Sentinels, and then Trask brings up like a whole bunch more. And then Scott's like, Storm, tell him the forecast. And so all of a sudden, you see Storm's feet walking, and like there's lightning, and the ground, the dirt turns to glass. And then the Sentinels are like Omega level threat. And that in itself, yeah, I don't know if y'all realize how big that is because they didn't acknowledge that. I don't think there's ever been acknowledged in a cartoon or a movie that Storm is an Omega level mutant. And they acknowledge that here because Storm walks up and just lets loose this massive, like, I think it was like a tornado or something that just swoops up all the Sentinels. And that's just that. Like, she just takes them down herself. And then the master mode that he's working on, gets up and comes at them. This is where you see the scene of Wolverine charging at him, and then Gambit charges up his claws. So Morph turns into Blob. Wolverine jumps and bounces off of his stomach and pretty much takes down the master mode just like that. And that's that. So the X-Men at that point, they have won. They've taken care of the Sentinels, at least the ones that they know of. And Scott and them have like this contact that they've been working with in the government who is a friend of Charles. So she comes and pretty much is like, good job. And this whole episode was basically Scott and Jean. They were trying to figure out how to tell the team that they're probably going to leave the team because they don't want to raise their child in this dangerous environment. And Wolverine had kind of picked up on that anyway. So he was kind of in a mood because of that. But their I guess their time that they chose to tell them that, which is after they defeat these Sentinels, is interrupted when they try to tell them because Magneto comes and he's like, yo, look, you're my X-Men now because Charles said so. And I'm sure you've seen that clip in the trailer. So that's the first episode. And then the second episode pretty much continues from that because we start off seeing that Magneto is actually saving humans. Like, he's not just saving mutants, he's actually saving humans. And Scott and them are all really kind of like, nah, we don't trust you, Magneto. You're Magneto, da-da-da-da-da. And the episode is basically Magneto trying to prove that he truly is one of them, that he's trying to play ball, right? So in this episode, the government actually comes and pretty much says, look, Magneto, you need to stand trial for what you've done. So in an effort to, have a good grace with the X-Men, he goes ahead and goes to trial. And we get to the trial. Scott and the rest of the X-Men are there, except for Jean, and actually Logan stays this time, and Jubilee as well because Jubilee didn't go. And of course, the Friends of Humanity attack this trial after Magneto has said his piece, because he does give this speech about basically why he thinks the way he does, and he has some really good talking points. again, y'all, I really think you all should watch the episode too, because I don't want to ruin his good speech. He had a really good speech about his upbringing. He was Jew and everything during the Holocaust and all that. But it was a really good speech that Magneto gave. And so the Friends of Humanity attack. And while this is going on, Jean goes into labor, so Wolverine has to rush her to the hospital. And then we cut back, so that's going on, and then we have the fight going on. So this new guy called I think it's called the Executioner, if I'm not mistaken. He has his gun, and they're like, you only have one shot, so you got to make it count. And he's planning on using this gun on Magneto, and this whole time I'm like, what is that? And I know it's gonna hit somebody because they're putting this big, attention on it. So Scott tries to take this guy on, and this isn't it. It doesn't go well for Scott. He kind of kicks Scott's butt. I ain't gonna lie, and I'm a Cyclops fan, but he kind of gets through there. He beats everybody up actually, except for Morph. Morph does a good job of taking him on, but he beats Cable. Why do I keep calling Bishop Cable? he beats Bishop. He beats Scott, and he kind of takes on Morph, but I think he still gets the better of Morph. So he pretty much gets past the line. And when he gets into the courtroom or whatever, they have taken Magneto's collar off so he could defend them. And in the midst of all this, he ends up getting a good shot off at Magneto. Storm sees it and she hops in the way. So Storm has taken this shot from Magneto. And I'm at this time like, hold up now. I know damn well y'all ain't finna take Storm out. But luckily they didn't. They did, but they didn't. And hear me out. This blast basically nullifies a mutant's powers completely. So at this point, Storm is powerless. She doesn't have her powers anymore. Magneto is livid, so he snatches up the court or the people in the courtroom and the executioner and takes them like damn near to orbit. And he's like, look, because Charles wanted me to be better, I'm not gonna take y'all out. He's like, please, don't try my patience. That's basically what he says. Like, please don't try my patience. So he basically lets them go, and then they acquit Magneto of everything he's done. Jean has the baby, and at this point, everything's all happy except for the fact that again Scott and Jean are trying to leave now. And of course Storm, because Storm doesn't have her powers. But Storm, at this point she's like, I don't have my powers. There's no reason for me to be here. She takes off. I don't know how to feel about that, but that's what happened. And then as Jean is reading this letter that Storm left for her and the Xmen, they get this knock at the door. And Morph at this time was saying, Storm will be back. She can chill with a normal human being. She gonna be back. Just watch. And then the door. They get the doorbell or a knock at the door, and he's like, "See, I told you." And he opens the door, and Jean is standing there, and she's like, "I need the Xmen." And everybody's just like shocked, and is like, Scott's like, Jean? And so you see Jean behind Scott looking, and she almost looks annoyed, if that makes sense. And so immediately I'm sitting here like, oh, they're gonna go there. And if you don't know, this might be hearkening to the storyline. In the comics, Scott had a baby with Madeline Pryor. And I think in the comics he knew that it wasn't Jean. She looked like Jean, but I guess he just like, well, I mean, she looks like Jean. But of course Madeline Pryor is Jean Grey's clone. So what it looks like in the show is that Scott has had a baby with Madeline Pryor, who must not realize that she is Madeline Pryor and thinks she's still Jean Grey. And it looks like the real Jean Grey has popped up. So that is going to lead to some really interesting stuff going forward, because that's a big storyline. And it then goes to, okay, we know in the comics Scott left Madeline for the real Jean. Is he going to do that here? Because that's what, I mean, if you want to be comic accurate, that's what he did. Was it a bit of a, asshole move? Yeah, but that's what he did. So again, I couldn't touch on every freaking thing that happened in these episodes because I do want you all to see it. But yeah, it's definitely worth the watch. Now I'll be reviewing each episode, of course, every week when they come out. But yeah, this definitely worth the watch. Definitely. I didn't even mention that the second episode's theme song, they changed the visuals for that too. They actually added Magneto to that intro as well, and they also there's this little cool section where they show a scene or two from the original series in the new animation. Because I immediately spotted it. Like, the one scene they show is a scene of Storm when she was fighting the Morlocks. And I was like, yo, that's awesome. Because that was one of my favorite episodes of the original show. So just look, just watch it. It's a lot that I didn't mention in this review. But my point right now is to tell you all the high spots of the high points of the episode and get you all to go ahead and watch the show. Please, by all means, go and watch this show because it's awesome. But with that said, hit the like button if you like what you saw here today. Drop a comment to let me know if you've seen the show or if you plan on watching the show. Hit that subscribe button, please. And remember, we have the high ground. Catch you later.